are dancing in the discomfort zone today with Front Row Frankie. After years of hardship, he dragged himself out of it through personal growth and spiritual, positive action and spiritual growth and all of the things that I'm like messing up right now because I'm so excited to have Frankie with us. Frankie, how are you today?
I am doing well, thank you. I love you. I love being here with you and for you, and I appreciate you having me. So thank you. And here's a little
Happy guy. And I have my positive watermelon.
There we go. See, our first email. I was like, we are cut from the same cloth.
We're the same kind of weird.
Yep, exactly.
Well, I was excited to have you on today because you have come back from extreme hardship to rebuild your life and to now be helping professionals to find purpose, to build resilience, and to find their purpose and find their potential. And that came out of you doing that for yourself. So why don't we just start with your story? Tell me where you've been and how you got here.
Okay, I'll try and give like a shortened version, because I can go down so many rabbit holes here. But yeah, my name is Frankie, Front Row Frankie, and my life has been formed by getting through hardship and adversity at the, lowest and hardest levels, and striving for personal growth at the highest levels. My story's a little bit unique where it ended up because it didn't start that way, in the sense that came from a good family, divorced household, but other than that, I had good structure. Both of my parents were police officers. Both of them were police officers. So, my dad was a career cop for 28 years, and my mom was a police officer for over a decade and then went to law school. I was raised right outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and went to a good Catholic school, played ice hockey, played baseball. I had all these things kind of set out for me to do things the right way. But I was always kind of disruptive. I was always the class clown, and I remember being fascinated with hanging out with the not so good kids, and I wasn't fascinated with the degree on my mom's wall or the badge on my dad's chest, and that kind of started young, and then I went through a big culture shock when I was 12 years old, and I moved from Boston, Massachusetts to Blacksburg, Virginia, which Boston is a big, diverse, populated city. Blacksburg is a beautiful, beautiful little town in the Southwest Virginia mountains, and rolling mountains and rivers, and it's gorgeous, but there's not really much there. It's a rural community, so it was a big culture shock looking back at it. And we have two major college universities, Virginia Tech, Bradford University. Realistically, the drinking and drug culture is widely accepted. Not really much else to do. I came from a history of multi-generational alcoholism, and never saw either one of my parents deal with it, but it was there. So I fell into that at a young age, and I don't mind being honest here because it is my story. But by the time I was 18 years old, I had been arrested almost 10 times for underage possession of alcohol. I was in the juvenile detention center twice, house arrest for 6 months, scared straight program, got kicked out of the military school. All for drinking. This was all substance related. I wasn't a bad person, but when I drank, I did bad things. Mm-hmm. And that led to a hard life throughout my teenage years. I was always smart, but I never applied myself. Mm-hmm. And that made high school hard. I quit drinking when I was 18, and I didn't drink for 7 years. It seemed like that was the problem. So from 18 to 25, I didn't drink. But once I got past that, I started using other things, and I won't go too far into detail, but I can say that I became physically dependent on many things, and once I became physically dependent on those things, it overruled all good thinking, all good morals, all good values. I would lie, cheat, steal, and manipulate every situation to benefit myself. That is addiction and alcoholism in a nutshell, and that's what I had become. I went through a geographic change, and I moved to Florida, your state. I was in Florida, and the relationship that I was in ended because of myself, and I was left homeless. And when I say homeless, I mean unhoused. I was sleeping underneath concrete steps in parking garages. I was sleeping behind churches because it was safe. I was sleeping in gas station bathrooms because it was warm. There's a very distinct time that I remember around Easter every year when I think about it, because I remember taking a sheet off of a cross, because I was cold. And that's what my life had become. I finally got honest with my family, and I came back to Virginia, and I put myself through those withdrawals, which I feared so much. And I got through that, but it wasn't too long after that I started drinking again. So then it was just this vicious cycle for the next couple years that I had a lot of near-death experiences, and I'm very, very lucky and grateful to be alive. I'll share two experiences of what it was like there to really kind of let you understand how close to death I was and how lucky I am to be here. With my drinking, I had gotten a lot of stitches, a lot of broken bones, a lot of major injuries in my life, just reckless. So for me to get stitches, it was no big deal. I went to the hospital to get some stitches here on my forehead, which for me, it was fine. So I drove there with one eye, one arm, not my car, no license, bleeding profusely, completely alone. And once I got there, I got stitched up. This doctor says, I don't know how you're walking, talking, comprehending anything. I cannot believe you drove here. But by the time we took your BAC, it was at a 0.39. So to put that in perspective, the doctor tells me that 0.4 is comatose or death. It's the same BAC that my grandfather died with in a drunk driving accident. And I was driving, walking, and talking. With my substance use, I was using hard things in hard ways. I wasn't telling anybody about it. It's a very shameful thing. I did tell a friend, and he came over around midnight. He said, you need to go to the hospital, because my arm was red to the wrist and red up to the armpit. And he said, you need to go now. And I said, I'll go tomorrow morning. He said, no, you need to go now. With all the hospital visits I've had, he had me up on the operating table within an hour. And they said if I would have came an hour later, they would have amputated my arm. If I would have came 12 hours later, I would have been dead. Those were two near-death experiences that show me how severe it was for me, because I continued to party. Now I finally got help in 2016. Somebody sent me a life raft. I wanted a new way of life for so long. There was always a lot of good in me. People always knew that. People always gave me opportunities, but I never took them. And I came to Northern Virginia in 2016, and I did not have anything. Nothing. I mean, I didn't have a dime to my name. I didn't have health insurance. I didn't have nice shoes. I didn't have nice clothes. I had 13 out of 28 teeth. I was that guy. But I had the sincere desire to change and the courage enough to ask for help. When I did that, I started doing this new way of life like my life depended on it, because it did. I started striving for spiritual growth and personal growth and helping others, which ultimately helped myself. I get chills thinking about it, because it's created a good life for me. I wasn't always Front Row Frankie, but that was a nickname that I got in 2016 when I went to those little recovery meetings that saved my life. And I grew into the shoes and the person that you see as Front Row Frankie. I have 50 pairs of shoes today, but that one pair that I had in 2016 is my most valuable pair, and I will never, ever, ever get rid of them. And I'm grateful because I found God, what I call God. I found National Speakers Association. I found so many people that have just helped me. But I don't know if I've ever really shared that story openly with any of you. So I'm happy to do it, and I appreciate you, and thank you, Ann.
Well, and I'm honored, and thank you for being so open and honest. A guest probably 2 or 3 years ago on this podcast said, a problem shared is a problem halved. And I think talking about these uncomfortable things help other people who are going through them, who are pre-2016 Frankie, help them see, holy crap, it can be done. And that's the first question I want to ask you is, you talked about shame. You talked about flunking out of military school. I was like, wow, that must be bad, because military schools that's like last resort. They're like, nope, you've gone. And that brings a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and a lot of bad feelings about yourself. And one of the things that's necessary to ask for help, as you did in 2016, is the belief that you're worth it. How did you how did you find that worth to be able to finally say, all right, this is enough. This is going to hurt like hell. This is going to be awful. But I'm going to do this.
I surrounded myself with people who are worthy. I think in the most simplest terms, I surrounded myself with people who were worthy. People that, had what I wanted, the house, a car, friends, family, those things. I put myself in those circles. And, that worth began to grow. The best way to acquire self-esteem is to do esteemable things. But we don't get that until after we take the action, which contradicts the human condition. It contradicts the human thought pattern.
Yeah.
Like, we don't think doing that is going to give us that, but we don't get it until after we do it. And then after we do it a couple times, it's like, okay, something's working.
Yeah, and this is a theme that comes up again and again as people dance in all the different kinds of discomfort zones that we talk about on the show, is the action precedes the confidence. The action precedes the understanding of how this is, how this is going to go. Like, there's so many unknowns.
Yes.
Yep, and it's so scary. And I hear that a lot from people from, changing from addiction, from getting out of prison and rebuilding their lives, to just, changing habits from an eating perspective and being healthier, changing the environment, changing who's surrounding you, to see a different future for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. Where does the courage come to ask for help? I feel like that is like a human. I'm perfectly happy to help everybody, but me asking for help? Oh, no. So where does that, how do we do that? How do you do that, Frankie? Because I think you're good at that, right? You've got so many people who are helping you with your speaking business. You had somebody help you print the calendars that you came out with just recently that I'm enjoying every single day. You are good at this asking for help thing, and it's amplifying this important message that you have. So how do we do that?
I like that you said that, because I had my answer and then it kind of came back into another answer, because like as you're saying it, pain gives us enough courage to ask for help.
Yeah.
When we, the self, face enough pain, face enough hardship, face enough adversity, we ask for help. And I guess the reason I'm so good at it is because I have dealt with a lot of pain. I have dealt with so much hardship when it comes to, one of my superpowers is being able to relate to somebody in their darkest time and be able to relate it to a personal experience from my own personal life. And that can transcend from death and loss and grief and financial, from family to so many things. And these struggles have ultimately turned into a strength, because although I've faced so many hard things, I have this ability to relate to somebody in their darkest time and say, what is it? And then be able to share something from my own personal experience, that is a superpower now. So, I mean, it is, that's how, is because I've dealt with a lot of pain. And I don't want to deal with it. I know what comes from it. So I don't have any problem asking for help.
I think that's such an important piece of being seen as somebody who's in that dark place. Like, I can say, oh my gosh, I understand where you're coming from. You can say, I get where you're coming from. And understanding that you're not alone in all of that can really help somebody say, okay, maybe there is a better place I can be.
Also, closed mouths don't get fed. Straight up. Closed mouths don't get fed. So I can think about it all I want. I need the help. But if I don't ask for help, I'm never going to get it.
Yeah.
Also, you either got to take action after you get that. One of my spiritual mentors says I can complain about things 3 times, and then I either take action or shut up, because I don't want the help. I can lead a horse to water, myself including, or people that I try, say, look, this is what we do. Yeah. And what can you do? Okay, well, I'm going to keep it moving.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and I was going to ask this question later, but I think this is a good time to do it. So, in shifting roles, having been in all of these, really difficult situations, what advice do you give people whose a loved one or a family member is in that very, very dark place? Because, again, until somebody's had enough pain that they're ready to pull themselves out, they may not be ready to pull themselves out. And so what do you say to people who are like, yeah, my kid or my spouse or my sister is in this really tough place?
Community, you know, I think community can heal so many things, and that can come in such a variety of ways. You know, if you like crocheting custom cat socks, find a group that does it and talk about something, you know, because we're all human and we all have things that we can relate to that can help. And, you know, the connection is what can help us heal, where we find solutions kind of like vicariously just by talking about it. Like you said, we have the answer, you know, we have the problem, but we also have the solution all within us, you know, but it takes that connection with others to kind of to find that. And I was kind of laughing because you know, I wasn't sure where the question was going to go, but as far as somebody that is struggling maybe with some of the things that I struggled with, or like, you know, whatever it can be, I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, how do you get past it? You know, it's like, well, the train's on fire, run it off the rails until, you know, you have enough pain to, you know, do it. But because it can get worse. If you think it's bad, believe me, it can get worse, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to, for ourselves or for the people around us. Also, in the sense, from a family perspective, a lot of the times the only thing we can do is love at a distance, you know, to be there, you know. And it doesn't, I'm not even talking about, you know, addiction, just anything. Like, love at a distance and have healthy boundaries, have solutions ready to be able to implement them when they're ready. But like, until then, you're only hurting yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to watch somebody you love suffering, and they've got to get there themselves, which is one of the hardest things to accept.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So you talk a lot about near-death experiences. I'm really lucky to be here. How has that informed what you do now, what you've done over the last 10 years, and sort of how you've courageously taken action and continued to ask for help and continued to rebuild your life to the point that you're in a completely different place now?
Every day's a day in the bonus round. You know, that's kind of what it's like. You know, realistically, it's like I have gratitude. I do not take it for granted for some of the things that I've been through, because people are not here for a lot less. And so I don't take that for granted that, you know, I have a lot of gratitude. And also just a very acute awareness of death, which I don't really wish on anybody, but for me, it's given me a very, you know, unique perspective to be able to handle it for myself. And it ties into something that I speak about as far as a personal mantra. You know, I have a personal mantra that I encourage everybody to seek within and find. And a personal mantra is a one sentence thing of, you know, who you are and who you want to be. Figure that out and strive for it. And mine is to be an honest man of good character and to help a lot of people. That's who I am and who I want to be. And the reason for that goes really deep. It goes to death. It goes because I may not be here next week. You know, but I want that spoken at my eulogy, whether that's, you know, a week from now or 50 years from now. I want people to say, like, Frankie was an honest man of good character and he helps a lot of people. So it's like, okay, well, how do I do that? You know, I have to take the daily actions to fulfill it, which ties into the whole no bad days mindset thing. It's a daily thing. So like when I wake up and I say today is a good day for a good day, I mean it, you know. And then when I go to sleep at night, I make sure that I help somebody else. So regardless of what happened, I find gratitude for little things like a bed with pillows and food and my dog and like these things that we take for granted. And I say, you know what, it wasn't a bad day. It was a lot of bad moments. It was a very hard day. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm here. I'm alive. And today was a good day. Life is good. And then I go to sleep. And that's like the simple framework of it. But it ties into that, into the gratitude of just grateful to be alive.
Yeah. And I mean, gratitude is one of those things they say. The more you recognize things that you're grateful for, the more you see things to be grateful for. It's that whole thing in your brain that sees the things you look for. So what are you choosing to look for? Is that one of the premises of the no bad days mindset?
For sure.
Yeah.
It's gratitude in action. That's really what it is. And also it's they say it's almost impossible for the brain to like feel gratitude and despair at the same time. If they're together, it's very short lived. But intersecting and molding, no. Because when we are in despair, we're there. But when we find that gratitude removes ourselves from the despair, it kind of separates us from that. So yeah.
I love that. What are some of the other premises of the no bad days mindset? I mean, these mantras you give, what, 365 in the calendar
Yeah.
of these
Yeah.
little mini mantras? So you can just pick one and you can pick one, a different one every day, right?
Yeah. I mean, my key one is today is a good day for a good day.
Mm.
I say that before I get out of bed. It's hardwired in my brain, and after some time, I started to believe it. And that's really kind of the point of those mini mantras, the point of the calendar, the point of the daily personal writing. Doing it when I don't want to. It over time we start to believe it, and the neuroplasticity of it, we change, and we don't see ourselves change. But when we look back, it's like there's no burning bush moment. But when we look back, all the bushes were burnt. So that's definitely part of it. Is starting with intention. And another framework is a daily morning routine. The biggest suggestion I could give anybody is to develop a morning routine, and it doesn't have to be extensive. A lot of people say I can't, I don't. Those things that limit us from our own personal growth. We're hurting ourselves. And, it's like, okay, well, what can I do? Mine is extensive. It takes me 2 hours to leave the house or talk to people in the morning before it's a lot. But it doesn't have to be like that. I'm a lot, but,
Hey, it's your life. Why not? It's not a lot. It's not for who?
exactly. So
You
say,
do you. Who cares what anybody else thinks?
I do it. I don't have the time, the dog, the kids, the husband, whatever it is. Like, I don't, okay, well, what can you do? That's what I help people. It's like, what can you do? Can you sit down for 5 or 10 minutes? No. Okay. Well, when can you? I can do it after. Okay. Well, let's do that and develop the routine. And over time, so having that routine of daily writing, something, it doesn't have to be a lot. Mine is very intentional where I write the date. Simple. I write the date. I'm in the present moment. I write the time in the present moment. I write, good morning, happy Wednesday. And I do that every morning because it's like, over time I believe it. And then I write 3 little bullet points, where I'm at, what I'm doing. Hey, I don't have time for this. I got to go. Boom. It's the action, the action, the action. And then at the end of it, I say, today was a good day. Life is good. And I keep it moving. And I put that energy into the world. I give a lot of stuff through social media and go throughout the day. Outside of that, after I leave the house, see what I can do rather than what I can get. That is the key point and principle of the no bad days mindset. Because at the end of the day, when everything was terrible, I look at my personal summary where I'm selfish, dishonest, afraid, what could I have done differently? Is there something I need to talk about? Most importantly, who did I help? Because regardless of what happened, all that other stuff, it was terrible. Who did I help? And if I help somebody, it's not a bad day. And I write that. And then I say, today was a good day, life is good. Because I'm grateful to be here. And I go to sleep, and then I wake up, and I see, today's a good day for a good day.
And it's interesting because somebody might be listening to this going, "Oh, good Lord," right? But it is a choice. It is a choice. And I know you. I have, we were at an event and I was having a dramatic situation with my landlord. And I said, I need a hug from somebody that is going to just kind of shake this out of me. And I came down into the event at the conference. I saw you and I'm like, Frankie, I just need a hug. And you live this. Like, you genuinely exude joy, happiness, and service. And like it turned my whole day around. And I was like, well, thank you, universe, for running me into Frankie, because that was the perfect person to just put this good day thing and shift my whole energy. And so for anybody who's out there rolling their eyes saying, it's so positive, well, look at the man. He's happy. How can you argue with that, right? It's trusting that this is good day after day, and it actually works. And it is a choice, right?
It works, and yeah, you can look at me. You heard my story, you heard the story. You can see the two people. Actually, here, let me show you this here. This is you can see that it works, like,
wow,
it's crazy, so like it works, and it's the simple things, just doing little things over time that add up.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And you're in the middle of building your speaking business. You started what, 2 years ago, a year ago?
Yeah, well, I started the actual business 3 years ago. Started getting the momentum within NSA 2 years ago, and it is a grind.
Yeah.
But I knew that. That's why I was very intentional with not starting it, until I was ready, because I knew I always wanted to do it. I knew. In about 2017, I started speaking in public schools for a nonprofit, and I said, this is what I want to do. I went to a big recovery conference and saw somebody in a room, with 1,000 people, and saw him on the stage and had this fleeting thought of like, one day I want to do that. It's a fleeting thought, but it was that subconscious thought. And I started speaking in schools, and I did that. I sat on the board of directors, and I really grew within that nonprofit, and I slowly grew into Front Row Frankie. But I knew that I had to be able to go all in, and I did that 3 years ago, and found NSA 2.5 years ago, and it's a grind. I knew when I started, people told me it's going to take 2 to 5 years for it to click. I knew that, and I'm right here at 3 years, and it makes perfect sense. I do feel like it's about to click. A lot of really good things have happened over the past 6 months that are happening in 2026, but it's a grind, man. I still work at a restaurant 3 nights a week.
Right.
And
this is why I asked the question, because I know this. You work in one of my favorite restaurants, so thank you, which is the Quarter Deck in Arlington, Virginia, the most amazing Maryland crab feast. And when I found out you worked there, this is where I went for my college graduation celebration party. Like, it is such a good restaurant. And the crabs, you sit there and they dump the crabs on the table. And then you're a crab dumper. It makes me so happy. And I look forward to the day that you're not, because you're building this business from a very authentic place and in creating such good things. But it is terrifying, and there is no destination. I mean, it's always a grind to be an entrepreneur. And so I find it really cool that based on all of the things you've dug yourself out of, that you've chosen a tough path. I mean, it's a tough, positive path, but it's still, what we do is hard. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. And it is hard. It's, and I don't know if the people, in my personal life or the people outside of our, circles really understand how hard it is, but it's a me versus me thing, it's a, get up and do it. And I have one of my many mantras, many mantras is, up late and up early, because that's the season of life that I'm in. I might, get out of the restaurant and go to sleep at midnight or 1. I'm up at, 5 o'clock without an alarm clock. Boom. It's like, because my mind is just going, and there's always so many things to do, and there's a lot of fear and a lot of imposter syndrome, and it's like, just do it anyway. And I know slowly but surely I'll get there, but then also I'm already there. This is what I prayed for. It's like, these are the days that I'm going to remember. I do believe that I'm going to travel the world and help so many people, and I'm not going to remember when somebody else is planning my days and my weeks. They're going to say, here you go, you're going here, boom, boom, boom. I'm going to remember working my ass off, grinding, taking out consolidation loans, and continuing to put into me, because when I stopped working at the restaurant so much, I took about a $40,000 pay cut, and over the past 3 years, it has caught up to me. And I'm there where it's like, man, I'm hit, but I'll keep putting in because it's this investment within myself that I know is going to pay off in dividends. I trust that and I believe that, but it is hard. It is hard.
Yeah. Well,
If it was
what's
easy,
that?
If it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Exactly. And going back to no bad days mindset, today's a good day for a good day. Today is a good day. I'm there. I mean, it's that choice of mindset and that intentionality that says, well, I'm already there. Yeah, I've got cool places to go, and look at where I am now. And this is one of the things I talk about is look at how far you've come, especially when you're frustrated that you're not there yet. Look at how far you've come, and boy, you've come far, right?
I think about that. I'm in year 9 of this, journey, since my old life, and I think of where I was 9 years ago to where I am now. Like, where am I going to be at 9 years from now?
Right.
And I know that I'll get there because I have my goals within sight of every room in my house. That's subconscious. Even if I don't read them every day, they're there. There's probably, there's 5 copies within this 700 square foot condo.
Love it. Love it. Well, frontrowfortitude.com is your website. You can find all of your social media there, and your reels are fun. Every day you go to that little altar place and you turn on the little light and you grab your beads and you're like, today's a good day, and then you breathe and you read your mantra. It's so fun. And the calendar you can get on the website as well. I have mine, and I rip off every day and say, what's Frankie got to say today? So
I can tell just a little bit about this.
Please.
I have done so many guided journals, so many daily affirmation calendars, so many daily planners over the years. I've been doing this for a long time, and there is nothing else like it. Most calendars is a daily affirmation calendar, and it's the simple quote on the page, which is fine. That's great. But this is structured differently. It is a compilation of everything that I've taken and I've learned and put into one. It is a daily transformation calendar. Each month is broken up into personal growth and development. This is, connection and compassion, and each day you have not only the affirmation, which is written by me, the mini mantra, which is written by me, you have a reflection, which helps us seek within, which does the work for us just because we're tapping into our inner selves. And it really encourages people to journal, to write, because a lot of people ask me, how do you journal? It's hard to free write. But the way the brain works is like, if you just start writing about this, you're going to end up writing about how you forgot to take your mother's trash out at Christmas. You don't, it's like you just start, and then the healing comes. So I don't think there's anything else like it in the world. And I wholeheartedly believe if somebody follows this daily, their entire life will change. And you can buy this in July and get your money's worth. You could buy it in December and get your money's worth. For real. It's wild. I'm so proud of it. And I've been thinking about it and dreaming about it for years. So thank you. And she was talking about the social media, Front Row Frankie. She asked me what my last name was, whether to use it. I have one, but I don't use it. Front Row Frankie.
I don't even know your last name. You're just Front Row Frankie.
Facebook, TikTok, wherever it is, Front Row Frankie. And, I post daily there to help others, which is the key to life. Helping others helps ourselves. So, help me help you.
I love it. Front Row Fortitude is the website. I'll put all the links and everything in the show notes. Frankie, thank you so much for all of your strength and sharing with us in a vulnerable way and helping us all be better and serving us today.
Appreciate you, Ann Bonnie. I love you.